Hi everyone, I come to you from the parent pickup line. I guess I'm trying to find every opportunity to put these videos together each week. So this week we're going to be talking about ethics, the ethical dilemmas, ethical decision making, ethical frameworks, the police working personality, the 4 different types of police officers that we can categorize, and making the right decision while seeing the picture. All of these actually come into play, and they're a framework, they're the building block that will give you the necessary information when you finally enter into CRJ 402, Ethics for the Criminal Justice Professional. In the second part of the week, we're actually going to talk about police discretion, which really comes into play with our discussion for this week. It's the understanding of when to use that discretion and when not to. There's an example that happened here in Massachusetts several years ago of a man and a wife. They were speeding on the highway. They were doing approximately 95 miles an hour, and the Massachusetts State Police pulled them over. And the man explained that his wife was in labor and that he was speeding because he needed to get her to the hospital. So the police officer gave them an escort, and the husband and wife went upstairs while the wife was giving birth. The state trooper handed the father a speeding ticket. Now, that is obviously something that's out there, and it's an extreme when it comes to discretion. But that's one of the discretion measures that, should the police officer have given the ticket, or should they have looked at the extenuating circumstances for the speeding? Is there a context to the crime that was committed? And we can see that scenario play out time and time again. There's another case here in Worcester, Massachusetts, that an individual, kid was 17 years old, and I know this because I had met the kid after his sentencing, was incarcerated because from our Massachusetts had a mandatory, well still does, a mandatory 1,000 feet rule within a school zone for possession of a controlled substance. Well, the story goes is that the officer had pulled the individual over as the 17-year-old's traveling through the school zone. He was roughly about 100 yards from the outside of that 1,000 feet school zone. And when the officer asked if he could search the vehicle, the 17-year-old male explained, "Yeah, sure. I just want to be honest with you that there's a roach in the ashtray, a small leftover piece of a marijuana cigarette." The officer then found it, and then charged the 17-year-old male with possession of a Class D substance within 1,000 feet of a school zone, which carries a weight of a 2-year mandatory sentence. The 17-year-old wasn't allowed to graduate from high school, and ended up spending his time at the Worcester County Sheriff's Department for 2 years for possession of a roach within 1,000 feet of a school zone. Again, in another extreme case where discretion should have been used, both at the law enforcement level, the court level, and the prosecutor should have thrown the case out if the officer couldn't make that positive discretion to change the life of a 17-year-old that had no prior criminal record whatsoever, even during their juvenile years. So police discretion, it really comes into play, and it comes into play a lot during the week, this week specifically with ethics. The scenarios that you're asked to look at for the discussion this week really entail making that right decision at that right time, and understanding that there's a bigger picture, and there are other moving parts in every one of those scenarios that most students or most people outside of the system really aren't aware of, including overtime, safety, and responsibility of zones of coverage for law enforcement that perform the patrol function. Well, anyways, I think I've chatted on long enough, and if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me.